Hello, hello. Good afternoon, good evening, maybe good morning, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to the launch of our political education series, Robots versus the People, Tech, Money, and Politics. I'm your host, Jacinta Gonzalez. I'm part of the organizing team at MediaJustice. And if you're joining us today, you might be wondering, what the heck is a BroBot? Or you might be intrigued by the definition we're going to be sharing. So let's get into it. What is a BroBot? So, a BroBot is an individual who sells out people and the planet for a profit-driven tech supremacist world. You're going to meet a couple of them in the series. There's three in particular. The first is the Silicon Valley BroBot. The second, the BroBot cop. And the third, the BroBot politician. So let's break it down. The Silicon Valley BroBot works inside of the industry. And let's just say they drank the Kool-Aid. Like, remember these two guys? The Doge staffers that used ChatGPT to cut humanities grants? They were just doing their job. BroBots. The second type of BroBot is the BroBot cop. The BroBot cop turns the broligarchy's tools on our communities. It's the ICE agents that are using mobile Fortify to capture biometric data at a traffic stop. Pretty normal BroBot behavior. Or a police officer scrolling protester social media to be able to use surveillance to criminalize folks. Another BroBot. These types of BroBots expand criminalization and harvest our data. And the broligarchy, they profit on both ends. And the last type of BroBot is the BroBot politician. And the BroBot politician takes tech money and votes accordingly, no matter what their constituents, our neighbors, and no matter what their party says. So one example could be, for example, Melissa Bean, who won the Democratic primary for Illinois' 8th district with the support of 1.7 million from AI and crypto PACs. Being pro-corporate is part of the brand. The Huffington Post nicknamed her Wall Street's favorite Democrat as she helped deregulate the banks. So these are the type of BroBot politicians a lot of us have probably been dealing with. And what do all of these BroBots have in common? They enjoy outsized power at the expense of everything else alive. How? They became the minions of the broligarchy. They use, sell, or promote the tools and the story that keeps the broligarchy in power. And if you need a refresher on who the broligarchy is, you can check out our 7-part political education webinar series, WTF, The Rise of the Tech Broligarchy. So how did we go from broligarchy to BroBots? We've all witnessed since the start of Trump's second term how the tech sector and the industry and authoritarianism have rapidly combined. The broligarchy has expanded state power, but also state terror, all while making the rich richer. In fact, the broligarchy has achieved so much power that now they have minions everywhere. And these are the minions that we're calling BroBots. Because you don't get tech fascism without pocketing agents of the state who can suppress democracy. And right now is the time to talk about all of this because the tech industry has already committed hundreds of millions of dollars to the 2026 midterm elections, where Congress is literally on the ballot. Big tech is investing in squashing any future regulation over AI and trying to expand data centers. And that's why in this context, we need to support communities to access the facts about tech money influencing federal races, state races, but also our local elections as well. So this is why we're coming together, and over the course of 6 episodes, we're going to follow this money and make it make sense. In today's episode, Meet the BroBots, who's buying the midterms, we're going to name some of the players. We're going to talk about the broligarchs, we're going to talk about the BroBots, and we're going to talk about their super PACs trying to buy the midterm elections. But we also want to just make sure that folks know we're not just trying to have analysis. We're trying to turn this into collective power. So we're also going to be talking about building power through people's assemblies, direct actions, and turning this type of exposure into organized pressure from now until the elections in November. But the one thing that I just want to make sure that we remember is that we're not starting from scratch. The people side of this fight is already on the streets. Our job right now is to connect the money to the harm and turn that into action wherever it is that we live. We know that this story is bigger than just campaign spending. At least 9 people have been killed by immigration agents under this administration. The Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act this spring. States are already redrawing maps to strip Black communities of political power. AI corporations are really bringing in the money, right? Cashing in on federal war and surveillance contracts. And the data center build out keeps accelerating neighborhood through neighborhood, even though people keep saying no. And the thing that all of this has in common is the tech industry. Their data tools sell information to ICE to know where to find people. Their money is redrawing the political map. And their buildup is the thing that our communities are fighting against. We know that this moment would already be so dangerous without big tech, but with big tech, it moves faster and it reaches further. But now we have to look at this screen where we're looking at right now, because this is where the power is. And every photo here is a picture of someone who decided not to wait and decided to take action. Over the last year and a half, we've been building. When Elon Musk took a chainsaw to the federal government, people launched Tesla Takedown and went after their stock. When Palantir turned our tax records and DMV photos into a deportation machine, Mi Gente and many, many other organizations launched the Purge Palantir campaign. They've been going to Palantir's offices. They've built a tracker of every politician on the Palantir payroll. And those politicians, they're starting to give the money back. So we know that there's a lot of power and a lot of organizing that's happening. And even inside these same companies, workers are refusing to be part of this. No Tech for Apartheid started with engineers would rather quit than build the tools of genocide. So let's be clear, not everyone that works in tech is a BroBot. Some of them are taking a stand and would rather walk out than become one. And one last thing that we want to make sure that we're grounding ourselves in is that on data centers, people are winning. Just this month, New York became the first state to pass a statewide moratorium, joining more than 100 cities and over 30 states that have passed their own types of moratoriums and bans. And polling shows that data centers are incredibly unpopular. Over 71% of people say they don't want one in their backyard. That's the part that the money doesn't want you to see. The reason the industry has to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in this election is precisely because they're losing the argument. They're losing the fight. So that's where we're coming together to continue to expand, to continue to build. But before we go any further, I have to do a little bit of a disclaimer. MediaJustice is a nonpartisan 501c3 organization. We don't endorse candidates and we don't oppose them, no matter how much money they're making or taking from the super PACs. Our job tonight and our job with this campaign is education. We follow the money, we show you how it works, and what you do with that information is up to you. When we name names in this series and in this organizing, we're naming facts on the public record. We're not trying to tell you how to vote. We know you guys know how to do that. So to help ground us in this moment, this attack on democracy on multiple fronts, but also the real fights that communities are already waging, we'd like to welcome someone who's living on both sides of this. Tonight, we have a really amazing guest, Representative Justin J. Pearson. He is joining us today in his capacity as Tennessee State Representative and is a key leader in the fight against XAI data center in Memphis. So welcome, Representative Pearson. Thank you for being here with us. Yeah.
Hey, Jacinta, we might have lost Pearson. He's jumping back in any moment now. So
Awesome.
we can toss it to talk about some of the robots that we've been paying attention to while while we give him some time to get back on.
That is amazing, and I appreciate that. Sorry, I wasn't checking the chat as I was going through the robots. There are too many robots to keep count at this point, Stephen. Who's your top robot these days?
Oof, so many to talk about. But one of the donors we've been paying a lot of attention to. And what's up, everybody? I'm Steven. I'm the executive director of MediaJustice. And yeah, we've been doing research on some of these different minions that are out there doing the work for the robots, and some of the big individual donors that are out there that we need to pay attention to are familiar names. Some you might know, like Elon Musk is not going to surprise you. We talked about him a lot last year during the WTF, the Rise of the Tech Broligarchy series. But some of the names that we're starting to pay attention to now are less familiar. Like, for example, we've got Jeff Yass. He's a Pennsylvania-based tech billionaire. He's one of the biggest Trump and MAGA donors, has loads of crypto money from being the founder of the Susquehanna International Group. And we've also got figures like Greg Brockman. If you never heard of that figure, he is pretty important. Right now, he's the co-founder and president of OpenAI. If you've read Karen Howe's Empire of AI book, you find out a lot about Greg Brockman in that book. But he, in this latest election cycle, has become a significant political player. OpenAI, in case you folks don't know, is the company behind ChatGPT. And according to Tech Influence Watch, there's just four people: Elon Musk, Jeff Yass, Mark Andreessen, he's a broligarch that we covered last year, who's behind this big venture capital firm, Andreessen Horowitz, and Ben Horowitz, the Horowitz to that. They account collectively for about 67% of the 391 million that's coming from the tech industry that have donated to candidates and PACs this election cycle. So those four guys alone account for the bulk of the money that's entering this election cycle, that's being funneled into AI PACs, that's being funneled directly to candidates, that's leading to commercials for and against candidates in both parties, who are against the tech agenda. So those are some of the oligarchs that we've been paying attention to, and yeah, so that's to answer your question. But I think we got Representative Pearson on, so I'm gonna haul back and leave y'all to it.
Sure. Amazing. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, we're going to transition from talking about the evil BroBots to talking about someone who's been on the front lines fighting these BroBots in so many capacities. Thank you so much for joining us today, Representative Pearson. We're really thrilled to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored and privileged to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, we've known a lot about all of your organizing, all of your standing up for your community. So we know your time is limited. You got a lot going on. So we're going to get right into it and ask you a couple of questions. You just launched your campaign for Tennessee's ninth district in October. And you're really calling it a campaign for the people, right? This is something that we really believe in media justice, is making sure that the people are organizing and have those rights. But 91 days before the primary, the General Assembly redrew the lines and split Shelby County, the county where you're running, into three, culminating the state's only majority Black district. So we just want to hear a little bit more about that. What does that mean for the people of Shelby County? And what does it tell us about the state of democracy in this moment?
No, I mean, post the Kelly decision, I think is going to go down in history as one of the worst decisions of the Supreme Court in its entirety, in its entire history. Our majority Black district of Memphis and Shelby County was cracked into three. And so instead of having one congressional representative, which was the district I was running in, we now have 3, 5, 8, and District 9. I'm still running in Congressional District 9 because we aren't going to quit in our fight to make sure that our voices are being heard. But we know and need to know exactly what this is. It's an attempt at Black political power dilution and deprivation for the benefit of the few who are, as you all were just talking about, right, articulating a vision for this country that's rooted in building more power for those who are at the top and less power for the rest of us. Ultimately, they are trying to control the government with people that they can handpick instead of having the people decide who should best represent them.
That's exactly right. And I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the decision being one of the worst that will go down in history in terms of being a another stain on this country's history. But this is one of the many fights that you've been a part of. I want to kind of bring some highlight another fight that you've been leading in and been part of, which is the resistance to Elon Musk's XAI computer in Memphis. It's an environmental threat that dropped on a Black neighborhood without its consent. Can you connect that to the gerrymandering with us, right? Most people would treat those as like two different fights, but we know that you don't. So what's the relationship between the now trillionaire, right, who's putting a data center in your community, and the politicians that redrew this map?
I mean, we have to be very clear here that taking over the electoral process is one of the aims of tech oligarchs, right? And as in fact, and Reverend Dr. Odomos III talks about this really well. But the idea isn't just that they become multi-billionaires and trillionaires, right? Or that they build multi-billion dollar companies. It's that they control the means of political power. And so by investing in candidates, both Democratic establishment candidates and Republican candidates, they are wielding and seeking to wield influence and power that stops people's organizing, silences dissent, and destroys the democratic institutions, lowercase d, democratic institutions that we rely upon to preserve our lives. Right. And so 6 years ago, I started a fight against two multi-billion dollar companies, Valero Oil Refinery, Valero Energy Corporation, and Plains All American, who were trying to build a crude oil pipeline. And our community organized and galvanized and defeated that project. Then Elon Musk, 2 years ago, came into our community to build the world's largest data center and supercomputer, Grok. He came into the community without the consent of any of the local folks who lived there, not the state representative who represents the area where this computer was going to be, but he had forced local elected officials and non-elected officials, public officials, to sign non-disclosure agreements, and they did it. The mayor of our city capitulated almost immediately and bowed down to Elon Musk and became the spokesperson for his company, XAI, which was now merged with SpaceXAI. And our community learned that they were using illegal gas turbines to pollute our air, becoming one of the most significant increases or sources of increases in nitrogen oxides and formaldehyde in the entire state of Tennessee. So we saw more kids going to the ER, more people being forced to take off work because of respiratory illnesses and unfortunately premature deaths due to the pollution. He doesn't just have a plant in Memphis, he's now got one in South Haven, Mississippi, and their mayor, who's a Republican, did the exact same thing as ours. And now he's using 59 gas turbines illegally in violation of the Clean Air Act, and we have 3 lawsuits against him because of that. But let's recognize the fact that he is investing some of the most money into politics this year. Announced recently he's going to do $100 million, particularly for elections like mine, because he wants to have people in office who are not going to have any regulations on data centers, who's not going to stop them from taking over farmland, who's not going to stop them from going into communities and sucking up all of the water from our aquifers. And we have to realize how evil these folks are. They're willing to use our fresh drinking water to cool their data centers, right? Using technology to replace our jobs. We are being told to sacrifice the things that we need for their want to make billions and billions more dollars, which is why all across this country we have to unify. Working class people, people who are in rural America, urban America, suburban America. It really is us versus the billionaire class that is willing to sacrifice our lives for their benefit and for their profit. And these politicians don't want that unity. They don't want us to start seeing our issues as similar. And so they're starting to invest millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in campaigns to keep us divided, to keep us not paying attention to them.
Mhm. No, I really appreciate you bringing up this example because it highlights so much why we're using the framing around robots, right? It's not just Elon Musk doing what he wants. It's actually all of the politicians that are down to sign the NDAs, that are down to do their bidding, that is facilitating all of this and really making it possible. Which is also why it gives us hope to know that we might have a different political moment coming for us. But we named the series, right, BroBots. So let's name some, right? You already talked about the mayor of Memphis, but who are the BroBots attacking democracy in Tennessee right now? And how are they selling people out? What is it that they're actually doing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got the mayor of Memphis is one of them. The governor of the state of Tennessee, Bill Lee, is another of them. And then I'll tell you what, some of the folks, she's no longer the head of the health department, but she was a supporter of this same type of ideology, right? Because it isn't ever that just the CEOs of these companies are operating in a silo. They are getting and controlling the institutions that would otherwise hold them accountable, the environmental protection agencies, the health departments. These are all a part of pushing forward a tech oligarch agenda that's antithetical to human life. In Tennessee, we're also starting to see resistance building up in towns like a county that I'm running for Congress in called Lawrenceburg, where hundreds of people showed up to a data center hearing about an ordinance a couple of days ago, and the county commissioners pushed off the vote. They are part of the BroBots, right? Because they are trying to maintain a status quo that benefits the rich, the powerful, who are trying to force this technology on us without our consent, without our benefit, and without any research or regulation. And in Tennessee, it really is the people who are holding these elected positions and these appointed positions who are sacrificing our lives, which is why I tell folks this isn't a Democrat issue or a Republican issue. This is all of our issue because you need clean air. You need clean water. And those are human rights that are being sacrificed so that Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and Dreesen and all these people can make more money.
Yep, this is exactly their alternative vision of where we're going, right? And unfortunately, it's a place where people and communities are optional for them, right? They've already have their escape plan, and it really is that they don't really care about people's fundamental human needs, and human rights. One of the things that we really have struggled with in this organizing is the BroBots are pretty powerful, right? Whether it's the broligarchs themselves or the BroBots that are doing their bidding. We've seen videos and videos just this week of people being arrested just for speaking up in their council meetings, speaking out against data centers. We know that the repression of the federal government is huge, and this this narrative around inevitability, right? Like, well, they're coming, so you might as well join them. You might as well try to make the best of it. Is something that's just kind of been a block to the organizing. And I couldn't agree with you more that this is the moment where we need a multiracial movement, right, of folks from across different classes with different perspectives coming together to build people power. That sounds really great, and it's actually pretty hard to build, right? So what are things that have kept you both moving but also building in Tennessee, in moments where it seems like it is inevitable, it's gonna happen, the odds are against us coming from the Supreme Court or the oligarchs. What kind of keeps that fire in you? But also, what are some concrete things that people can do to be able to build that movement that we need in this moment?
Yeah, I think it's three things I would say. My faith is something that I lean on consistently because I practice Christianity, and my faith tells me that there's always going to be persecution, but there's always resurrection power, right? There is a need for us to always believe that a different vision for the world is possible. And even if we do not see it in the immediate term, we never give up the faith that that is possible. And that's been something that's been really helpful to me and to movements well before for this one. The second one is love. They are doing this for money. They're doing this for profit. They're doing this for their own gain. They're doing this because they want to test the limits and the bounds of technology, not benefit humanity in any way. And we are doing it because we love our communities. We love our neighbors. We love our kids. We love our aunts, our uncles, our families. And we believe that everyone deserves clean air, clean water, and clean soil. Love isn't traded on the New York Stock Exchange, but it is the source of power that we must always hearken back to, particularly in moments when it seems most difficult. And the third thing is people power. Democracy, when you break democracy up, it is broken into two words, demos and kratos. People and power literally is rooted in democracy itself. And for me, my hope is being sustained every single day by people in communities across Tennessee and this country who are not yielding, who are not breaking down, who are not bending to this authoritarianism, to the fascism, to the racism, to the xenophobia, right? It's very easy to say, well, ICE is in our community, so let's quit. Elon's already here, so let's quit. But imagine if those who came before us did that. Imagine if the ancestors of the civil rights struggle or the Chicano movement struggle. Imagine if they all said, you know what? I just don't want to do it. You and I wouldn't be here having this conversation. And this isn't to sound like, too highfalutin at all, but the reality is one day we will be ancestors. And we have to decide, as one amazing writer said, what kind of ancestors are we going to be? And I am determined to be an ancestor who fought with every ounce of my being to make this place we call home better and to preserve this planet and to preserve our hope and to preserve our faith in the future. And that's the invitation. That's the invitation of the movement. That's the invitation of our campaign. Go to votejustinj.com. That is the invitation that we are engaged in to build a movement for justice rooted in love because we can and will experience wins if we don't resign, if we do not quit, if we do not bow down. And we cannot afford to bow down in this moment in time. We've got to give it everything that we've got.
Oof, couldn't agree more. And it is a guiding question that we have to ask ourselves more often is what kind of ancestor we want to be, and what kind of fight we want to leave to the next generation as they're coming up. And we know this fight is a long one. We know that there's many, many folks that have come before us and will likely come after us. But we also know we got a little bit of a sprint before us from now until the election, right? This is
Right.
a very, very pivotal election. We know that a lot is happening. We're going to be tracking a lot of what's going on with tech money and politics through this education series. But as you're looking ahead, right, thinking about the election, we also always know that we want to encourage people to participate in democracy, participate in and wherever your local election is happening. But what are things that you think we should be tracking as we're looking at how the broligarchy and the BroBots are trying to interfere in this election? What are the threats coming our way? Where should we kind of be blocking some blows, and where should we actually be moving as we head towards November?
That's a great question. One, if you are in Tennessee, you can still vote early until August 1st. Wherever you are, look to see when your next election is, because here's the most important thing I think for people to realize. All politics is local, right? That's what Tip O'Neill said, former Speaker of the House, about 100 years ago. We have to be engaged in our local politics because these moratoriums, they aren't coming from the United States Congress, right? They're coming from the State House. They're coming from city councils. They're coming from county commissions. So what to do now? Who is your county commissioner? Who is your city councilor? You need to schedule a meeting with them. Ask them, what's your position on data centers? What's going on? What are you thinking? How are you preparing for when they come into our community? And that is all of our job. It is to find who is the person in our community who is going to speak up and to fight on our behalf. And if they are not, maybe you should run for office or find someone else who is willing and support them because this fight is hyper local, but the consequences are international. The consequences are generational. And we have a responsibility, particularly when 67% of upcoming data centers are being built in rural communities. We have an opportunity to build solidarity and to build community with one another that changes the trajectory for our nation. And yes, we are up against big money. And so it's important to pay attention to who is paying for this. Whenever you see an ad on Facebook, on Instagram, on any of these platforms or on television, you should say, who is paying for this? Look for it because they're creating innocuous names. They're trying to do all these things, creating new LLCs to hide the money and where it's coming from. And I'll tell you, sometimes they're not even talking about AI in these ads, right? They're talking about something that seems a little bit more nondescript, but they're trying to convince people to vote a particular way. And so how do you help with that? That's the last part of your question. Volunteer on a campaign. Knock some doors, make some phone calls, put democracy in your hand, and go tell people the truth because we are going to be up against, even in our campaign, they're coming into our campaign. We're going to be up against an onslaught of ads that lie and that try and tell and paint a different picture because they are terrified that if regular people start getting power, we are going to hold them accountable for the harms and the dangers that they are creating to public health, to our environment, and to our workforce. But the best antidote is to have somebody knock on the door. You hear someone say, well, I just saw an ad that he did such and such, and to educate and inform them. Oh, that was paid for by Elon Musk's PAC. Ignore that. Here's why they're scared. Because he fights billion-dollar corporations. That goes so much further than a 20-second Instagram video or something like that. And that's a way for us to put this democracy back in our own hands.
No, so well said. And I think it's something that we've been really sitting with, especially seeing the fights against data centers. You can't fight that at the federal level, right? This administration has made their agenda very clear. They're going to be
Absolutely.
trying to push this no matter what. But it depends on how strong our local government is, how strong our ability to organize around our local government is, that's actually being able to bring around these wins. And so whether you're fighting a flock camera, right, and surveillance, if you're trying to strengthen your sanctuary city provisions, if you're trying to fight against the data center, it's actually within the local setting that we have that power and that ability, and where we have those relationships. I think the thing that you just said about door knocking is so important. And for all of the folks that are like, I don't live in Tennessee, there is someone in your neighborhood that is probably putting up a really great fight. And the question is, how do we actually go out and talk to people? As organizers, we know it's actually that relationship, it's actually that connection that's going to get us to the next stage of the fight. Um, and just to ground us a little bit more in this fight against XAI in Memphis, what is happening with the fight there? What are next steps? What are ways that people can plug in? We obviously know that folks can continue to support on the democracy tip, but as folks are organizing against this trillionaire, what are just ways that other folks can plug in and really support the local organizing that has been happening there?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for asking that. So, 6 years ago, we founded Memphis Community Against the Pipeline. That's now become Memphis Community Against Pollution. You can go to memphiscap.org. My brother, actually, Keyshawn Pearson, is leading our work there as the executive director in coalition with the Southern Environmental Law Center, Young, Gifted, and Green, the NAACP, and so many others who are really saying, how do we build coalition in Memphis and Mississippi, right? Majority Black communities, majority white communities, to show solidarity, to create and to push a narrative of clean air, clean water, and clean soil. And you know what? When we think about clean air, I'm not just talking about the pollution. I'm talking about the pollution from formaldehyde and nitrogen oxides, but also noise pollution. A lot of people who live near these plants can never sell their homes. They are not sleeping. Their kids aren't sleeping. They're getting sicker living near these facilities. And so our next step in this fight, and again, you can go there and start to get some updates. But we are actually have some lawsuits that are going ahead, going forward against XAI for violating the Clean Air Act, and we need people to make sure you're sharing this information. And if you are able to elevate the fight, it really matters. It's the first lawsuit of its kind against a hyperscale data center. It's obviously against Elon Musk, and we have to fund the fight, and we have to continue to educate people. And fortunately, some national attention is finally starting to be there. But we are a Black-led organization, and Black-led organizations in particular are not getting much money to fight data centers. A lot of white-led organizations are getting the money. And so you can donate to Young, Gifted, and Green, NAACP, Memphis Community Against Pollution, to help in this as we take on the risk, right, of being targeted and attacked by people like Elon Musk and the Trump administration. And I mean that very intentionally because the Department of Justice just sought to join into the lawsuit that we have against XAI, saying that they're using that technology to kill people in Iran. And so we need to allow them to violate the Clean Air Act to go kill people halfway across the world. It's intersectional, right? That's why I'm anti-war. That's why I'm anti the data center development that we're seeing, because the harms are intersectional across the board for communities that they think are powerless. But we have these three lawsuits going forward. We're organizing with people in other parts of the state, in Lawrenceburg and other places, so that they just get access to information about what has happened to us, what they can do about it. And then we're going to be in a big fight in Memphis to push for a moratorium on data centers for the next 18 months. And we're going to need folks to write letters and join us in that campaign. But just if you don't do anything, just sign up and start being informed alongside us.
Amazing. This is anyone, you got your marching orders. Whether it's going to the ballot box, taking to the streets, going into the courthouse, figuring out how to get the money to the folks doing the work. We all have a role and a place to be in this fight. I'm actually looking forward to seeing Keyshawn in DC on Monday before the
Yep.
Inter-American Human Rights Commission, because we know This isn't just something that we're seeing in the United States. Folks in Chile, in Mexico, in the UK are also fighting data centers, are also fighting this type of environmental disasters that we want to be able to stand up against. So it's incredibly inspiring, and thank you for being here. Any closing words that you want to give to folks? I see a lot of hearts, a lot of love
Oh,
coming your way, a lot of support in all of the ways that you're fighting for community. But yeah, want to pass it over to you to close us out.
absolutely. Well, look, I thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you all. And I appreciate you all keeping the faith and keeping the fight. This is an important time to be alive in American and world history, and we can't waste it. We have to show up, and we have to show up strong. If you're interested in helping us electorally, go to votejustinj.com. Seriously, we need folks to phone bank. If you're in Tennessee, go vote, because the only way we change the direction our country is going in is if we get better people who are in positions of power who aren't bought. But I really do love y'all. And that's what this is about. It is about love. It is about us putting our hearts where our hope is. And my hope is always going to be in people power. It's going to be in each and every one of you. And I just thank you for letting me spend a few moments with you.
Thank you so much, Representative Pearson. And yeah, this is what the campaign is about. We know the BroBots are after our community, but we believe that the people power of all of our communities joined together is going to be much greater. So thank you so much for joining us. Wishing you all the best. And yeah, folks have a lot of marching orders, so folks know how to plug in, how to support, and let's keep the word going so that folks can continue to support and get all the way to victory. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Keep the faith. Keep the fight. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Representative Pearson. This is exactly what this is about, y'all. Sometimes we feel like the BroBots are gonna win, and we're gonna actually get into a lot of the moves that the BroBots are making, a lot of the investments that they're making, trying to squash our democracy. But we wanted to really keep ourselves anchored in the hope of what a different world could be like, and couldn't think of anyone better than State Representative Pearson to keep us grounded in that. But with that, I will invite over back to join us the Executive Director of MediaJustice, Stephen Renderos. How you doing, Stephen?
Doing all right. I'm fired up now after Representative Pearson. Come on now.
Exactly. That was the hope. That was the intention, to make sure that we know that this inevitability argument that they keep trying to push down our throats is not going to happen here, because we know what the people are capable of, and we know what kind of people we got on our side.
I mean,
But
it's inspirational to listen to him talk, and then you look at the chat and all the people shouting out some of the victories. I saw earlier someone talk about the governor of Oregon blocking a data center sale, the land sale for a data center. I mean, the victories keep coming on this because people are resisting, and I think like when we fight, I think we're demonstrating to Representative Pearson's comments, like we're actually living into being good descendants right now.
And part of the reason that we're winning makes them scared, right? And when they're scared, what do? They play dirty, and they play with a lot of money. So I will pass it over to you to kind of name some names, explain to us who these BroBots are, where they're putting their money, and how that's working out for us.
That's right. Yes. I mean, so we call this series Robots versus the People, Tech, Money, and Politics. So, with this very first episode, what we wanted to do is start laying out some of the names, start talking a little bit about how the money is actually flowing based on what we know, based on research that we've done, based on what's already been out there and reported. So, here on the screen, you see some of the top individual donors that have been popping up from the BroBots. Some of these are broligarchs. You have your Elon Musks of the world, you have your Marcus Andreessens, but some of these are new figures that are emerging. People like Greg Brockman, Jeff Yass, who have become richer and stronger as this like AI moment has continued expanding. And that's been paralleled, like the expansion of AI in our everyday lives has been paralleled by the expansion of these data centers that are getting built everywhere. So their wealth is directly tied to that build out that we're seeing out on our streets. But what are they doing with all the wealth that they're building in this moment? And a lot of that wealth is just based on speculation. But we've seen that their money is flowing right into this election cycle because they know, based on the resistance that's been coming around AI, that's been coming around data centers, that their agenda is at risk. And so, four people, Elon Musk, Jeff Yass, Mark Andreessen, and Ben Horowitz, account for 67%. I said that earlier, 67% of all the money that's flowing right now into the elections, that's being given directly to candidates, that's flowing to PACs. So individuals are playing a big role in this particular election cycle. We definitely want you to keep in mind for future episodes, Jeff Yass and Greg Brockman, those names, one who's getting his money primarily from crypto, the other Greg Brockman, who is the co-founder and president of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. They are they are rich in this moment and they're using their money to influence our elections. And those are, your we called them the Silicon Valley BroBots. So these are your Silicon Valley BroBots, and inside of those individuals, they're a part of companies. And so let's talk a little bit about some of the companies that are huge right now in spending towards the elections. According to Tech Influence Watch, we have 71 tracked cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence companies that together have contributed around $444 million to candidates, to committees, and other political groups this cycle already. We're in July and the midterm elections are in November, y'all. So this is a lot of money to be pumping this early into the election season, but they're doing it because they feel like they need to. Those four companies make up 60% of all the tracked company contributions. So it's a big chunk of money that's moving. Coinbase and Ripple Labs are two crypto companies that are valued both around 43 and $50 billion respectively. We're going to get more deeper into the crypto side of things. Just know, as Representative Pearson was telling us, it's all intersectional. The crypto stuff definitely intersects with the data center stuff. We're going to cover more about the crypto industry. Who are the figures behind it? What are they doing this election cycle in episode 3, which will be coming up in a few weeks. But for now, just know that there are crypto companies and BroBots that are huge players in the midterms. Andreessen Horowitz, which we've talked a little bit about, they're a venture capital firm. They collectively have about $90 billion in assets. And OpenAI is a company that is also investing a lot of money in this election cycle. They're an $852 billion company. So as we dig a little bit deeper, talking about the crypto side of it, Coinbase has a $32.5 million contract with the DOJ agency. OpenAI holds a $200 million contract with the US Department of Defense to provide custom AI models for national security. So the more these companies embed themselves in the government, the less transparent and accountable the state is. We're already seeing this in the administration that's claiming that anything involving AI at an executive agency is exempt from Freedom of Information Act requests. So we saw that recently. Wired did some reporting that in response to a public records request, DOJ actually withheld documents about how AI was being used for housing policy, citing that it's a privilege that doesn't exist yet. So you're not allowed to actually collect public records on how AI is being used right now for housing policy. That is ridiculous. This is an example of the kinds of policies that the tech oligarchy wants to become the norm. They want to essentially set the rules for how they get to play inside of government. And then they want to put as much money as they want to into the elections to get their preferred candidates into office so that they can continue gaming the system. So a little bit about what they're doing with that money. They're forming super PAC networks. So we want to spend a little bit of time just like defining like what a super PAC is, just so we're all operating off of the same information. Super PACs can accept an unlimited contributions and spend an unlimited amount of money supporting or opposing federal election candidates. So while super PACs can't directly fund or coordinate with candidates, they can raise unlimited cash for ads that can change the outcome of a race. We're going to get more into ads in the next episode when we dig into the BroBots playbook. But for now, know that there are 3 major super PACs that are part of this kind of like alliance of the AI industry that the AI industry has essentially formed during this election cycle. These are names that are worth becoming very familiar with. And these 3 are Leading the Future Super PAC Network. It's often referred to as OpenAI Super PAC because it's a lot of those figures like Greg Brockman that are putting money into that particular entity. So leading the future is one to definitely pay attention to. We also have Meta's super PAC network, backed by, if you want to take a guess, Meta. So Mark Zuckerberg putting his money into a super PAC alongside the company itself to advance its preferred candidates. And then the other one to be familiar with is Public First Action Super PAC. This is a super PAC that is backed by Anthropic, the company behind Claude. Uh, Probably folks remember seeing Anthropic in the news recently, because there was a big hubbub with the Department of Defense, and Anthropic, where Anthropic wasn't trying to agree to certain changes to their terms of service. Eventually, actually, Anthropic more or less caved to what the Department of Defense was trying to do. But Anthropic, very famously outside in the AI industry, is seen as the good version of the other AI companies. But in reality, like what its technology is actually being used for in the military context, and is extremely devastating. They're also leasing data center space from Elon Musk out in Memphis. We just talked a lot about the data center out in Memphis, as Representative Pearson was giving us a download of what the impact of that data center in that community. Well, Anthropic is the big tenant of that data center. They're using a lot of that computer infrastructure. So those are different super PACs. I want to lift up Anthropic just because, like, I think we want to kind of demystify a little bit about the good guys versus the bad guys in the AI industry, in how they operate, building the kind of scale of AI that all these companies are building, the data center infrastructure that they need in order to power their AI models are just simply devastating. So there are no good guys in this batch. So even though they might spend their money slightly differently, they're ultimately aligned on many of the same things. So I want to dive a little bit deeper on leading the future super PAC, since we talked a little bit about that. This is the this is big tech's like big flagship AI super PAC. It's backed by Andreessen Horowitz. There's money in it from co-founder of OpenAI, Greg Brockman, the robot that we were talking about earlier. Palantir co-founder Joe Lonsdale is in the mix as well. Palantir famously is the company behind a lot of the tech infrastructure that Immigration and Customs Enforcement is using to power their deportation machine. So the folks who are profiting from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE's raids on immigrant communities are definitely behind the super PAC. In the Leading the Future super PAC network, there are affiliates. There's Think Big, and by affiliates, like kind of little offshoots. So there's Think Big, which is Leading the Future's Democratic super PAC. There's American Mission, which is Leading the Future's Republican super PAC. So yeah, each party actually gets their own super PAC because big tech doesn't really care like what political party you are aligned with, as long as you greenlight the deregulation and the policies that they want. So we can take a moment here to just talk about some of those names. Think Big, American Mission, so transparent. So uh, so that they can be clear with the voters about, who they're for and who they're against. This is a thing that the part of the playbook of big tech is like hiding money in different little entities. So, but it's important to know Leading the Future is the big kind of overall umbrella, and you have these little offshoots that are being used to actually funnel money to their preferred candidates on both sides of the aisle. Then there's American Mission Florida. This is the Florida affiliate of American Mission. So Republicans in Florida are getting their own super PAC. And lastly, there's the Build American AI. This is the name is probably a little bit more transparent about what they're trying to do, but it's Leading the Future's 501c4 issue advocacy arm. And they're using a C4 because it allows them unlimited amounts of cash that can be funneled through nonprofit organizations, which do not legally have to disclose their donors. These guys launched a $10 million campaign to push Congress to craft a national AI policy that will override state laws. They've done a lot of the shady stuff, which we'll get into in the next episode as we break down more of their playbook. So that's leading the future. Let's talk a little bit about Meta's Super PAC network. This is Meta's central hub for state election spending, and it's called the American Technology Excellence Project. Well, what a name. And the thing is, they're destroying American excellence, but that might have been taken. Then we have Making Our Tomorrow, which is similar to Leading the Future. They're also creating, Meta's also creating their own kind of democratic state level pack. And Making Our Tomorrow is their version of that. Forge the Future Project, that is their Republican state level pack. So again, funneling money through different entities to their preferred candidates across either aisle. So big tech is really good at dismantling the meaning of like Democrat or Republican. You're either for or against corporate power over people. And then there's also Meta's California only super PAC, mobilizing economic transformation across California. Uh, so weirdly enough, it also is a Meta acronym, mobilizing economic transformation across California. We'll dive into California next time and why so much money has actually been spent there. There's a lot of tech money flowing into the California state elections. And lastly, there's Public First Action Super PAC. We talked about this being the main company behind this being Anthropic. Its affiliates, so the little offshoots include Jobs and Democracy, which is Anthropic's Democratic Super PAC, and then Defending Our Values, which is the Republican version of that, and Public First Action, which is also a 501(c)(4). So those are three AI super PAC networks. Interestingly enough, they're all structured in very similar ways. You have the big umbrella where the bulk of the money is flowing, and then you have these affiliates that funnel money to Democratic candidates and to Republican candidates. It was interesting to look at all the data and see where all the money is flowing because it was clear there isn't any kind of particular party line that is being supported. It's just whoever's with our agenda. Um, okay, I want to one last thing to run through the top 10 states that these three AI super PACs are focused on. So if you're from these states, pay attention. And the place where these AI super PACs are spending the most amount of money include Illinois, California, Ohio, New York, Texas, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Michigan. As you listen to those states, be thinking about what's happening in each of those states and why these AI super PACs might be spending money there. If you think you might know, why don't you drop it in the chat? What is happening in that particular state? That might be a reason that these AI super PACs are spending so much money there. I know that there are consequential elections going on these midterms. I know that there are some very particular data center projects that are happening in many of these places. So throughout the series, we're going to return to some of these states more and more just to look a little bit closer on what's happening on the ground. And we're going to be pulling in some of the folks working on the ground and fighting this tech agenda. So this is a lot of information. I know someone in the chat was asking earlier, are we going to be sharing our slides? And the answer is yes. So if you want to dive a little bit deeper into these players and where their money is going, one resource that we wanted to direct you to is the Tech Oversight Project's AI Super PAC research site. We met with them recently. They're doing incredible work already, kind of capturing all of this information and putting it in ways that are very easily accessible. So we'll drop that resource in the chat. But we'll also encourage you to go to our BroBots versus the People campaign site and just sign up for more information because we're going to be funneling out more tools and resources over the coming weeks. So that's the information we have for you for today. I want to transition us into closing, and to do so, I'm going to bring back our wonderful, amazing host, Jacinta Gonzalez.
Thank you so much, Stephen, and thank you so much for breaking all of that down. I don't know about y'all, but I've been trying to read about all of this in the news, and it just comes a confusing mess of like who's PAC and who's behind it and what are they doing. So just being able to have it laid out clearly is an incredibly yeah, helpful resource in the organizing. So thank you for breaking that all down for us. And like we said at the beginning, y'all, we don't just want you to know the information. We actually want to put this into action, right? The idea is that this is an offering. This information will hopefully be helpful in what we're doing, but we know that we can't do it alone. What we really have to do is come together. So what is next? Drum roll, please. We are really, really excited to announce that we're going to be having a convening called Fighting Techno-Fascism, Power, Surveillance, and Resistance in person in the great city of Chicago, Illinois on September 19th. September is still a good time to visit Chicago. It's not too cold, the weather is lovely, and the conversation is going to be amazing. Some of the speakers that are going to be there with us will include Naomi Klein and Astra Taylor, who have a book coming out on end time fascism. We also have Gil Duran, who's going to be talking about the Nerd Reich. So we're going to be having really, really important conversations about what is happening with techno-fascism, how do we fight it, how do we continue to be able to resist. Um, and if you're like, ooh, I want to be there, how do I sign up? How do I register? We're going to go to that site that Stephen mentioned, brobotsversusthepeople.org, and you'll see a little link there to be able to register, to be able to come. We are launching it today, so please sign up. We know from the experience of Take Back Tech that we have a lot of folks that are really eager to be in a room together and to build community and to build this analysis together. So try to get here soon so that we're able to fit everybody in the room. Um, so that's part of the campaign is being able to gather from different corners of the US, but also other places. We know techno-fascism is not just impacting us here. Hopefully we'll have some guests from Argentina that have been fighting against Milei and Peter Thiel in Argentina now to also give us a little bit of context about what they're up to. So it's going to be a really, really exciting conversation. But you might be saying, okay, that's great, but like, what do I do in my neighborhood? Or what do I do in terms of how do I organize in my neck of the woods? Um, and that is why we have a toolkit that we are also launching today around how we build a movement and the fight against the tech broligarchy. And part of the reason that we're launching this toolkit is because we know that we have to take action locally. We can organize people assemblies, which are conversations that we have in a democratic way. When our elected officials are failing us, how do we actually come together in community to talk about what are our problems, but also how do we solve them? And so if you're thinking, ooh, that was really important to understand how PACs work, I wish people in my community knew. Hey, go to the toolkit. You'll be able to download it. You'll get a sample agenda. You'll get the slides. You'll get the checklist, everything you need to be able to organize this powerfully. And we know that sometimes we go into communities, but sometimes we also got to take to the streets. So if you're thinking that Broligarch art was amazing, and shout out to the real human artist, Jose Gutierrez, who was behind this amazing artwork, and you're like, ooh, could I use that for a flyer? Could I use that for a poster? Absolutely. We do not believe in gatekeeping. We want you to have access to it. It's all in the toolkit, and you can get the toolkit on the site. So really just want to encourage folks to be able to check that out. You can go to the BroBots versus the People site to organize your people's assembly, organize your action. If you want a little bit more information or you want a little bit more help or support with what you're thinking, click the Join Us button under Organize, and we'll get back to you. One of our organizers, someone from our team, will literally reach out, have a human-to-human conversation about how we work on this. And then you can also download the toolkit to get more information. And again, this is just the kickoff webinar. We have 5 more to come. So please register. You can go to the website to register for future webinars. You can also watch past episodes. So if you're telling someone about this and you want to make sure to go back and learn more, we'll have all of the recordings there. And it's all there for you in one little place so that we don't get lost and are able to continue to organize and build power together. So I think that's basically what we got for you today. Please join the BroBots versus the People campaign. Watch the webinars, take action, come join us in Chicago, and we are going to kick some Brobot ass between now and the election in November. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.